Products, and my guests today are from Vermont Kind. And you are?
My name's Camden.
Camden, and
I'm Karen Devereaux.
Karen Devereaux. And you own a store in Barton, correct?
Correct.
It's the one just as you come off the thruway. So
Yes.
big building.
Big red building.
Big red building.
Kingdom Kind.
And what is Kingdom Kind?
Kingdom Kind is a cannabis dispensary, basically. I don't really love the word dispensary. We just call it Kingdom Kind Cannabis Company.
Yeah.
Where we sell our Vermont Kind products, our Northeast Kingdom hemp products, and a few products from some other local cultivators.
So their products, meaning edibles they've made or marijuana they've grown?
Correct. Yep. We mostly carry our own products because we have them that we do under our label Vermont Kind.
Yeah.
But we do also try to support some other local growers and manufacturers.
That's great. How long have you been open?
Oh, Kingdom Kind opened in October of
Yeah, end of
2022.
October.
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
And I know Vermont was sort of fairly slow, to put it mildly, unrolling their program and what people could do and what they couldn't do. But how long preparation time did you have to have for all of this?
Oh gosh. Oh, we probably spent a full year and a half, maybe, sort of going through the steps to get ready. And I think we probably had a little bit of an advantage just because we had the hemp company already.
Okay.
So we'd been doing all the processes with hemp, but as far as the paperwork and the licensing and getting the store totally rebuilt because it was just a
Wreck.
empty black shell, pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. So I'd say about a year and a half.
So you started with a hemp company.
Correct.
And how long have you been growing hemp?
So Northeast Kingdom Hemp, we grew our first crop in 2017. So, and then in 2018, when the Farm Bill sort of opened things up a little bit,
Yeah.
that got a little easier, but not, just it started to get easy, then COVID came along and shut everything down, and,
Right.
then cannabis came along and turned us upside down, so.
What made you start with hemp?
It's funny, I think everybody in the Northeast Kingdom's probably heard this story, but my husband came home one day and said, "Did you know you can grow hemp in Vermont and it's legal?" And I looked at him and said, "So?" Like, what, why would you grow hemp? Like, I didn't really know anything about hemp.
Because it's such a useful product.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't see, I knew about hemp clothing.
Right.
I didn't know about CBD at that time.
Right.
So he said, you got to do some research about this. And so I did, and my mom at the time was struggling with a lot of arthritis pain. And I said, well, let's buy some, and if it works for her, then sure, let's grow it. Because he said, it's really good for people. People are using it, and
Yeah.
it's helpful. So that's really how we got started. And then it was like, fast forward, because I think that was probably March or so. And if we were going to plant hemp that year, we had to,
Get it
find
right
seed
now.
and get it in the ground. Yeah, so we didn't have a lot of time to think about it.
So
we just
how
jumped
much
in.
hemp do you grow?
Well, we don't grow any right now because we've had in the past. We've grown as much as 3,000 plants, I think, on our biggest year. But we didn't need to grow any this year because we had enough supply.
Yeah. And were you then producing your own CBD products?
Yeah, that's a funny story, not funny story. When we started growing hemp, we were told, people really wanted it. People would
Yeah.
buy it from us. We had no intentions of making products. My husband was a welder at the time, and he'd always worked away from home. He was like, oh, I can grow hemp in the summertime, and I can do blacksmithing right here in the winter and stop traveling. So he planted those first seeds in 2017. He hasn't welded or blacksmithed anything since then. But we had dispensaries in the state at that time. All there were medical
Right.
dispensaries, and there was one that told us they would buy all the hemp we could grow, and the nicer it was, the more they would pay, between $200 and $400 a pound. So my husband went all out and grew the best,
Sure.
And then when the time came, they said, oh, well, there's more hemp on the market than we thought there would be. So we don't know what everybody's going to do with all this hemp, but it's probably going to, it's just going to waste. And I said, no, my husband anticipated that. And so ours will be, you know, nicely vacuum sealed and fresh for a long time. So they didn't buy any of it. And so then we just were like, oh, I guess we'll try turning it into oil. Maybe oil is where the money is.
Sure.
So we started by having other people extract the oil for us, like one of the dispensaries in Burlington area. But they couldn't keep up. It was like when we sent them 10 pounds of hemp, it might be 6 weeks before we got back any oil.
Right.
So then we had this products that we needed to try to bring to market, but we couldn't really we didn't know how to scale the business because we couldn't depend on the supply.
Right.
You know, if we got a lot of customers, great, but oh, now we don't have any oil. If we got a lot of oil. So it was, and we weren't business people. You know, I'm a school teacher, my husband was a welder. So we didn't really know about selling, you know, marketing products.
Did you send him to school for marketing?
We did not. we probably should have.
That would be good, yeah.
He was, at the time, he actually did go to UVM for 1 year, and then we decided because we couldn't get the products, you know, the oil extracted,
Right.
we better start extracting our own. You know, my husband just goes and goes and goes.
Apparently. So much for a business plan.
Yeah, it's called the 1 day at a time plan. We've been on it for a lot of years now.
Yeah.
But so we decided, oh, we're going to buy, you know, a CO2 extractor, and we're going to make
Sure.
great oil, but we need somebody to run that machine. And it was me or him. And he was a better choice.
So you
Yeah.
quit school.
I did after my first year. Yep.
Wow.
And then that fall, we hired a consultant who came in and helped me find all the equipment and then glassware and everything we needed, and set it all up and taught me to run it that fall, to make CBD oil.
So was your plan then to just take a sabbatical for a year or so?
Pretty much, and just to see what happened,
Yeah.
and see if it was like something we could actually make work and do. And I've
been
been
doing
making CBD oil for 2 or 3 years, made a bunch, and we did okay, but it was tough to sell the
Sure.
CBD, and we were just kind of holding out, hoping that we could turn it into cannabis someday, because that was really the only way we thought that we were going to be able to make it.
And meanwhile, you're still saying thanks, but no thanks to college. And
I'm too busy. I don't have time.
Someday, I hope. You know, as
Yep.
an educator mother, you know, I hope
Right.
someday. But he's got a lot of skill that he wouldn't have learned in school.
That's
you know how
exactly
that
right.
goes.
I do.
And yeah, he probably does the job of 3 at least. When
Yeah.
you see these other companies and they have, you know, a chief of this and a head of that and a head of marketing, it's like, yeah, we all just sort of,
Well, you could
do
give
it all.
yourself some fancy titles.
right.
At least put them on paper.
He'd have a couple.
So I take it you have no regrets at doing
No,
what you're
I
doing.
don't. College wasn't for me. I didn't think that, I didn't really have a good plan, so I didn't really want to spend the money and put all the time in and not really know what I was doing. I'd rather work for my family and try to make something work
Sure.
to start.
So at what point did you switch from CBD to THC? And maybe we'd better define what the difference is, because I hear a lot of confusion, and you probably do too.
Right. Okay, so, you know, when we were extracting hemp, it was legal to grow hemp plants that tested at or below 0.3% THC. And that's what we used right along because, you know, a lot of companies in the process of extracting the oil, they destroy all of the THC. So it's just a straight CBD, which in the beginning everybody thought, you know, the higher the percentage of CBD, the better. But what really research shows is that it's that combination of all the natural parts of the plant, right, that work best together. So we've always done a full spectrum CBD that has all, you know, that little trace of THC and all the other cannabinoids in it. Seems to be what really works best
Sure.
for people. And our extraction process is, you know, able to do that without destroying things. So we did that until, you know, licensing for THC. So now you're talking about plants with, you know, everybody wants higher THC.
Right.
It got hard to sell CBD once THC started to
Right.
be legal, because that's what a lot of people were looking for. Not everybody.
Or they thought they were,
but-
right.
Right. But, so yeah, so THC is anything, higher.
Mhm.
Cannabis, higher than in THC. So we started that. I mean, the licensing process was, of course, we couldn't just go for one license. I mean, a lot of people tried to get a cultivation license. But we had to get a cultivation license, a manufacturing license, and a retail license if we were going to do it all. And my husband thought we had to do it all.
One-stop shop.
Yes. And I think it's because, he's seen as a farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived on a dairy farm for a while as a kid, and he said right from the beginning, our dairy farms can't compete with the big farms out west.
Right.
There's no way that our hemp farms are going to be able to either.
Right.
And he knew that from day one. So then with cannabis, I think his theory is if you grow really good quality, right? And Vermont is known for quality products. We try.
We're number one.
We think so. You talk about Vermont cheese and
Yes,
beer
absolutely.
and maple syrup, and we feel like
Apple cider.
right, hemp and cannabis should be viewed in the same way.
Mhm.
So now we do cannabis, and that has been since that first license came along, which was probably sometime in whenever they came out. I know
Last year.
Yeah, sometime last
spring.
year. It's about time to renew them. I know that much. But so
And you have a food truck in the driveway.
yes, that was because we have a beautiful parking lot, and we
Yeah.
really, that store looked so terrible for so many years.
Right.
We wanted to have, when people get off the interstate in Barton, not to have that be the first thing they
Yeah.
see. So we worked really hard to get the store cleaned up and looking nice, and you need to come to visit just because it's a really beautiful spot.
Mhm.
Then we had that big parking lot, and I have another son who's 21 now, but when we started this whole cannabis project, he was not 21. He had always worked for us for Northeast Kingdom Hemp,
Yeah.
right out of high school
Sure.
and through high school, but he couldn't work for us with cannabis.
Right.
So he and his girlfriend went out to Colorado last winter just to have a, fun winter,
Mhm.
find some jobs in the ski mountain. She has a degree in nutrition. And so my husband was like, we have a big parking lot. We should build a food truck. Do you think Autumn would like a food truck? And,
He has great ideas
oh, he's full of them.
for the rest of you to implement.
You have figured it out. It is exactly it. I always say that.
But it works.
My husband's really good at coming up with ideas and getting the ball in motion.
Yeah.
And then, moving on to something
You
else.
suddenly find you have the
leaving us
ball.
holding the balls. Yes, and luckily I have extra hands to help.
So do you have hemp burgers with the truck?
We don't have anything. I think we should. She does a lot of, she does smoothies, for
Mhm.
one thing. And somebody asked me the other day, well, are you putting CBD in the smoothies if people want you to? And I was like, I hadn't even thought about it. But a lot of people do that, in other
Right.
places. So I do need to talk to her about getting some CBD in
Well,
her smoothies.
and other hemp products in food. It is food too.
Right. So,
And
yeah.
it has good nutritive value.
Yep. Another thing to think about.
Yeah. So, while people are tossing you balls, here's another
Another
one.
Yep.
Hemp burgers are pretty good.
All right. I'll have to check that out.
It's pretty funny.
So clearly this was not in the plan 10 years ago.
No. I always think back to when I first started teaching, somebody said to me, we are preparing children for jobs that don't even exist yet.
Right.
And I thought, how do we do that? And I look at him every day. I mean, he went through
Look
the
what you
school
did.
that I worked in, and I think that's what they were talking about. Like, I had no idea what he was what we were preparing him
Right.
for. I guess, which is just a plug for, teach kids really well to read, write, and do those things,
And
because
to
you don't know
think,
where, and
to think and to
You-
create.
You don't know where they're headed.
Yeah, and when I look at what's happening in education, it seems to be, and certainly in some states, it's about stifling creativity. They want people to march in little tram lines, but it sounds like that's not what's happening in your schools.
Yeah, I guess we were doing a good job back in the day.
Yeah.
He's a product of a great class of kids.
Yeah. And It really is creative, and I presume you get asked a lot of questions at school about what you're doing in the rest of your life, because there is a lot of judgment about cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle that?
Well, in the beginning, when we first started doing hemp, I didn't talk real lot about it at school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the 2018 Farm Bill, made hemp
Right.
federally legal, then I felt like I could talk about
Absolutely.
what I do. But now with cannabis, it's funny because, for years and years I hid the fact that my husband smoked cannabis. You know what I mean? And the kids didn't know that because he figured, they go to school, their mother's a teacher, they can't talk about, so they didn't even know about cannabis when they were in school. So
That's what you think.
yeah, well, at some point they did, but, when they were younger, I don't think they did. So even now that cannabis is legal in Vermont,
Right.
I still feel like it's a little bit weird with my teaching job.
Yeah.
Colleagues and coworkers are all fine with it, but I don't talk about it a whole lot unless
Sure.
they ask. If they ask, I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate and unfortunate that I teach at a school that's only 3.5 miles from where we live and do all of our other business.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of time to switch, but that's what I do. In my 7-minute drive, I switch from business to school, and then
Yeah.
from school back to business. I try to.
Yeah. Do you get asked a lot of questions about using both cannabis and CBD medicinally? And clearly that's how you started with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it must have helped your mother.
It did. Yep. I think that a whole lot of our customer base at Kingdom Kind is looking for medicinal.
Yeah.
The majority of our customers are not, 20-something years old coming in just for a recreational. Some are, but I would say over
Well,
50%
yeah, over half.
probably are older than I am, and they're looking for something to help them with pain or help them with
Right.
sleep. So we really, we make a THC oil that I call Better Than Edibles, because originally everybody was coming in, do you have edibles, do you have edibles?
Yeah.
And at first we didn't. And I was like, you don't need fudge, you don't need gummies, really. What you need is the medicinal properties of the THC. So in our Better Than Edibles oils, you can just put the drops under your tongue, you can put them in your water, or if you want to make an edible, I tell people, what do you want your edible to taste
Cook it
like?
yourself.
A Snickers bar? Go buy
Yeah.
a Snickers bar and put a couple of drops on it and eat it. And the beautiful thing about that is you don't have to worry about your kid or your dog eating the rest of the brownies or
Right.
the rest of the Snickers bar. Because how many stories do we hear about that? Oh, I made a batch of brownies and I left them on the counter. I went outside, I came back, and Grandma had eaten 3 of them,
Right.
and not knowing. So I think, personally, that should be, what we're famous for is, make your batch of brownies, put the drops of oil that you can measure exactly how many milligrams of THC you want and not be guessing. Eat
But you're
one
certainly
brownie.
titrating it that way. You know
Exactly.
exactly what you've got.
Exactly, and you can replicate it time after
Yeah.
time. Eat your brownie, and then if you want to eat 3 more brownies, just eat plain brownies. I think it's the way to go, but
Yeah, but for those of us who like a lot of chocolate, sure.
exactly. Who's going to eat one little gummy? Not me. So yeah, not safe. But
So are you giving people an education as well?
I think that since we started with CBD, it has been like a nonstop educational event. That's what I love about it. That's what I tell my
You're the
husband. Like,
teacher.
whatever we do, can I be the one that answers the phone when the little old ladies call and ask, what do I do because I have pain for this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the piece of it that's probably kept me interested.
Yeah.
Is the learning part. It has been a learning curve since day one, and I think that we have introduced a ton of people to what a tincture is, what CBD is, what the
Right.
benefits are. So I used to tell my mother that I was really sad that I wasn't gonna, like, my career was headed in a more of a consulting path for literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to, die famous for having taught, millions of children and teachers about how to learn to read. And I said, I think I'm going to be famous for growing weed. But I think that it's the educational piece of it
Sure.
that keeps me involved, because I don't even smoke. So
Yeah.
I leave the product testing to others.
There certainly could be a book in this,
There you go. Maybe I could write a book in my next.
in your next ball up in the air.
Yep. Yep. Well, it's funny, when we first started with hemp, at the time our boys were younger and they were watching that Duck Dynasty,
Uh-huh.
you know that show.
Yeah.
And I said, boy, we could do a show about the true story of growing hemp in the kingdom.
You could.
And now it's like evolved into growing cannabis in the kingdom.
Right.
Maybe that's where we're going to get rich.
TV show.
Yeah. So where do you see your direction as you're getting more and more involved?
Just keeping everything going, kind of. I do all the inventory and pretty much make all the products, so eventually looking for people to hire to fill a lot of the roles that I'm filling, and just more of a supervising position probably,
Mhm.
because I've got so many things to do that are more important than a lot of the things I have. I've just got a list that's really long that I'm at the point now where I could find people to do those jobs. I've got them figured out enough, but it's like, it's a battle between needing help full time and stuff that I can do my own, and I have
Right.
part-time help, like when my brother's not working in the field, and if I can get somebody from the store. So it's
We sort of pack
it's
it.
balancing
Yeah.
like how much I have to do and if I need help or not.
It's a lot of work, and
He
There's tons
definitely-
of
some of it's
steps.
seasonal. Yeah.
He has a lot of responsibility as far as inventory tracking. I mean,
Mhm.
everything from the seed to the shelf has to be tracked.
Right.
That's all on him. And the manufacturing of the actual products, other than trimming the flower, that's the one job that he doesn't have to do.
Who does that?
We have a couple trimmers.
We have a couple
Oh.
trimmers,
Yeah.
and my husband oversees that part of
Yeah.
it. He's my husband's more the cultivation end of things.
Uh-huh.
Camden's all the manufacturing and the tracking of product. So he has a lot of jobs, and the goal really is, like my husband and I say, we don't want to do this forever. We didn't build this company up with the intention, people say, oh, you're going to get this company built and then sell it, And my husband's like, well, I'm hoping my kids are going to want it. I mean, that's our vision. But they're having...
They may have a different vision.
Exactly. They're having some time to, work at home
Yeah.
and learn
Figure out
about
what
the
they
whole
want.
thing and see if it's anything they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty labor intensive if you look at the whole process, and you are doing it all. Who does the scientific piece, the testing? Because it all has to be tested.
We have to send them out to a third party to test.
Okay.
We used to do our own in-house testing, but now everything has to be third party tested, so
Yeah.
there's nothing really even left for us to test.
Right. He used to test all of our hemp products once,
Yeah.
and then we'd send it out for the third party. He'd test it during
Right.
formulation, and then now we just send everything.
Are there local labs that can do this?
Mostly Burlington.
Oh, that's pretty local.
Yeah.
It's still
In
Vermont.
state.
Yeah, in-state.
Yeah. And does the oil get tested?
Yep, we have to test it first for potency and then for residual solvents from the extraction process, and then
Yeah.
from pesticides that could have carried over from the flower, and also heavy metals that could have been
Right.
carried over from the flower to start with. I think those are the three things. And potency, pesticide, residual solvents, and heavy metals. And then flower has to be tested for pathogens also.
What kind of pathogens?
They say human pathogens. So I don't even really know what that means. I think it's like bacteria. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of testing.
It is a lot
And they're
of testing.
expensive. It's like
I
75
bet.
to 85 per test.
Wow.
Yeah, we spend a lot on testing.
Mhm.
Initially, we did buy an HPLC to be able to do some of our
Sure.
own testing to save that, and that worked okay.
I can
during
do
the hemp-
potency testing, but I still have to have all the other tests done, and I need a third party potency
Right.
test.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, I read something recently about some cannabis that was contaminated with pesticides.
Mhm.
And that's really hard because pesticides blow. I mean, you're not using them yourself,
right. They could be in the air from
but
another
they come
place.
in the air.
Yep.
And what contaminants are in the soil, and is there an uptake?
Right.
Right.
There
Of
definitely
that.
is.
Right, we
from
always, hemp
hemp especially.
is a bioaccumulator,
call it
they
a
always
sponge,
say.
but
so-
Right.
cannabis is probably the same.
Right, they're pretty much the same plant.
Yeah. Do you know if there are PFAS chemicals in the ones that are the forever endocrine disrupting chemicals?
I'm not sure.
That may not
if
even
they
be on the
test
list
for
yet.
those.
It will be.
Right, right.
It could be like one of the heavy metals, or
Yeah.
I think with it, there's a ton of the pesticide chemicals they test for. It's a huge list, so I would think that they could be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really complex. I mean, you just start off with growing a couple of plants. And
I know, really, if you look at, in a pretty short amount of time
Yeah.
overall, if you look at where we started, and like the last year and a half has been like, you know, first of all, we turned my husband's welding shop into a full-fledged, you know, science lab. And then we expanded on that in the past year and a half to have the indoor grows and the trimming space and all of that. And then we added the store on. It's just like
right.
run, run, run.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
It's a little, we don't notice it. It's one of those things because we do it every
Because
day.
you're just in perpetual motion
Exactly,
anyway.
but I think maybe from the outside looking in, looks like we're doing a lot.
Still hasn't really set in. Like we did all that work to set it all up, and now we've been actually selling cannabis for almost a year and like legally producing everything, and then now it's like feels like we've just been doing it forever, kind of.
Right, and yet I drive by or I go into the store, which because I just love the, you know, for me it's about the feel of the store.
Sure.
I don't work in there a ton, but I'm there once in a while. I'm there a lot. I just in and out, but I still walk out sometimes and I'm like, that's our store.
I did this.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand that. Like, for me, like, that's our face on the side of the street when people drive through. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's important that it looks a certain way or that people get treated a certain way. And, you know, you have people that want to do ads and they want to do things like, you know, put a thing in that says, mention this ad and you get treated like a VIP. And I'm like, I can't do that because I expect my staff to treat everybody like a VIP. You know? Like, I hate those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
If you use this, or you can't use a credit card. I was going to say if you use this card, you get a 5% discount or
Right,
something.
I think everybody should get the benefits, whatever we can provide, so.
I agree.
And we have a great staff at the store, so we're so lucky in that way. I think a lot of businesses, all kinds of businesses, right, struggle with finding help.
Well, if you treat your staff well, then
Well, and you know, the manager of our store actually came to work for us about a year before we even had the licenses because we knew he was the right person. And my husband said, we got to get him now. And he wanted to know the whole process. So, you know, so Mike worked in the fields, he worked in the lab.
He trimmed.
He went to some CBD, events where we were selling CBD at farmers market type
Right.
things. He did it all, so that now when somebody comes in our store, they can ask him any question.
And
He
he's
knows
done
the
it.
process. He's done it, and I think that's important.
it is.
So,
So how many people do you employ?
oh my goodness! So it's sort of all different entities, right? So Northeast Kingdom Hemp basically at this point employs me, like part time because I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And part of our office manager. And then Kingdom Kind Cultivation employs my husband and our trimmer. And then and my younger son sort of works everywhere. Manufacturing, we have Camden. And then at the store, we have 4 people.
Full-time?
basically. We have 3 full-time, one who's almost full-time, so there's 4. And then we have like our manager, our store manager, Mike, his mom works
Yeah.
some too. So she's 5th at the store. But a lot of
The food
times, oh yeah, and then there's the food truck that is another
Like 3
business.
people.
Yeah.
Good Mood Food, that involves 1 full-time and a couple part-time people.
So this is a real income generating, employment generating
I
business.
think employment generating, and that's what's important, right?
Yes, it
because
is.
some nights are days I go home and I say, why are we doing this? Like, I don't see that these businesses are actually making profit,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But then I say, well, he's getting a paycheck. My other son's getting a paycheck.
Right.
My husband's getting a paycheck. My son's girlfriend's getting a paycheck in the food truck. You know, the people at the store.
Your manager's
like,
getting a paycheck.
Yeah, everybody
This is
that's-
important.
yeah, that's really what it's about, right?
Yeah.
If at the end everything can pay for itself
Yeah.
and keep that many people in the kingdom employed,
Exactly.
then we're doing okay.
And it sounds as though it's going to grow, whether you expect it or not. It's going to expand.
Oh, goodness.
Right,
Luckily,
right.
they don't let you have a franchise in cannabis, so we can't have another store. So I hope that we can sort of like maintain for a little while. Like the food truck
Yeah.
was the last, little
Yeah.
piece that we just added on. My husband's always thinking, but I told him after the food truck, I said, hey, I need a break.
Yeah. Just read something this morning, and it may have been in Vermont Digger, but it was about investment and corporations coming in and investing in the cannabis businesses.
Mhm.
How are you going to handle that when they come knocking on your door?
Same way we always have, I think. We're stubbornly independent.
I like that.
I mean, I've said that all along. There's perseverance.
Yeah.
And there's straight out stubbornness. And I think that my husband has enough of that for all of us. It's important to us that it's a family business.
Right.
If it's no longer a family business, then we would not want any part of it. It's like
Sure.
we'd either sell out completely or keep it
Mhm.
in the family is our goal. So, and we don't even we choose not to sell product that's made by, corporate cannabis that's
Yeah.
already in Vermont.
Yeah.
We choose not to sell their product in our store, and we also choose not to sell our products to them, which would be a great revenue source for us.
Yeah.
But it goes against our
Principles, which
so,
is
yeah.
great. Yeah. There are so many other things you can do with hemp. I mean, a craft store attached to your other store.
That'd be fun.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun. Yeah, I told my husband all I ever really wanted was an ice cream shop. But, there's too many people already doing ice cream.
Well, has anybody
So-
tried mixing CBD or THC with ice cream?
They have.
We were talking about
Yep.
that. Making like
Yep.
a creamy
I
machine
think a
in
creamy machine in the store would be great.
make some
Right?
green ice cream. And
That
put,
would be really interesting.
Then I would have fulfilled my dream, because that's really, I just always have just wanted to scoop ice cream. I think there's good money in it too. But I think it's way too easy from what, it
Yeah.
looks too easy.
And you also don't want people driving after they've scooped a large one. So maybe that one can wait.
Yep, yep.
So on that note, we are at the end of our time. It goes really fast.
It did go fast.
That was fun. Thank you. And for the benefit of those watching, we're going to be including some of the videos that you're going to send me.
Yeah,
So
I'll
it'll
send you
take
some.
about a week to put all this together. But thank you so much for coming, and I'm coming over to the store. I drive through Barton quite often, and I have been looking as I go by.
Yep. Well, thanks for having us. And yeah, my new phrase is our Kingdom Kind is more than a dispensary; it's a destination.
I
So
like
because
it.
you can go there, and it's really a fun store.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that we don't carry a lot of other people's products,
Mhm.
but my theory is, why confuse you by
Right.
providing a lot of stuff that either we don't know a lot about and we can't stand behind, or we
Mhm.
don't think is of great quality. So everything on our shelves we believe in, right, and we can talk about, and we think is of
That's
the best
important.
quality. And now we have the food truck, so you can get your food and do a little visit to the store.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.